Hello, hello, hello. Welcome back to another glorious episode of the Tents Tabernacles Podcast, where we meet God through the person of Jesus Christ.
Yay! Episode 15. We're trucking
Yep.
along.
Yep.
Episode 15. That's
Before
a
you
good
know it,
number.
we'll be at 20.
I know.
Mm-hmm.
I know. I mean, I've been watching so many people's podcasts lately, and I'm just like looking at what episode they're on, and I'm thinking about how long people have been on, and I'm just like,
Yeah.
it can really go somewhere if you really keep at it. So this is our beginning stages, and I'm really excited about it.
Yeah.
And where to see where Tents Tabernacles is in a year or two.
Right. This is the last one of 2021.
Oh, it is. It is. So happy New Year.
Yep.
Right? Should I say it now? Yes, I should say it now.
Yeah.
Yes, happy New Year. How was your Christmas? Do you want to tell the listeners about your Christmas?
Oh, it was wonderful.
Mm.
We went to Arkansas and came back. It was great.
Whose family is in Arkansas? Yours or your husband's?
My husband's.
Oh, okay.
My family's in Memphis.
Oh, but that's not too far, is it? Is it far
from Arkansas?
Yeah.
No.
Depends on where.
But where his family is in Arkansas is not like deep in Arkansas. So like you still have to go through Arkansas to get to Memphis. So like they're like right outside Texarkana. So they're more on the Texas side than the Arkansas side.
Oh, okay. Okay. I always thought it was close because I have a friend who's from Forest City, Arkansas, but she always tells people she's from Memphis.
Like, yeah, so that might be on the other side of Arkansas then, because so they're from Stamps, which is literally like I said, right outside of Texarkana.
Oh, okay. Well, awesome. I didn't go anywhere. My Christmas was pretty good. It was, good as it could be. I feel like sometimes the magic is gone a little bit just because COVID is just like, we had to get tests beforehand, and it was just all this like, we're in limbo, or are we going to get together or not? And it's kind of annoying, but it was good. We got together. We ended up getting together. It wasn't, we didn't eat like we normally did. We tried to take some precautions, but it was good all in all. The kids had fun, and that's probably the most important part. But yeah, I'm going to go ahead and pray, and then we are going to start this episode. Today we are talking about some good stuff. So let's get started. Dear Heavenly Father, we thank you for this time. We lift up your name. We magnify your name. We just hope that what is said tonight is correct, that it comes from you, and that it only helps people. And we are going to talk about some topics tonight that could be a little upsetting to some people. It depends, but we just hope that your word shines through us, and that what we say is going to be a blessing to the audience. And so in Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
Okay. So today we're going to start with how did we end last time? Something's going on with David. David is the king. We already established that. And I don't know where we left off, but in my notes, the first thing I have written down is David's kindness to Mephibosheth. Is that?
Yeah, because so I think we finished with David winning some battles.
Yes, probably.
No, we ended off with him dancing
naked, but not naked.
Not naked, because he don't need an OnlyFans. Yes. If you don't get it, go back and listen to the last episode. Yeah, so we ended up with David and Michael be tripping about him, dancing before the Lord or whatever in front of the females.
Yes.
And whatnot.
Yeah.
So after the ark came back, then they're like settled or whatever in the kingdom in Jerusalem. And then now we have Mephibosheth, right?
Yes.
So one day David was like, "Is there anybody left in the line of Saul? I want to bless them." And his servant was like, "Yeah, there's this one dude named Mephibosheth, and he's out in Lodabar. But like that's it." And then David was like, "Bet, go get him, and I'm gonna bless him." So they go to get Mephibosheth. So here's the thing about Mephibosheth. This is why it's one of my favorite stories in the Bible, because this is explaining the blessing of a person who was crippled, but not by his own means. So his after Saul killed himself, or unalived himself, um um there was like this huge uproar or whatever, and people were like fleeing the castle or wherever they lived. I don't know if it was a castle or not, but like fleeing the
The
kingdom,
palace, maybe?
palace,
I don't know. The
the
royal
royal
place.
places. Yeah. So they were fleeing, and like one of the I don't know if it was a wet nurse or a handmaid or something. One of the maids, one of the like nannies, I guess, modern day, one of the nannies was carrying Mephibosheth out, and I guess she tripped, and when he fell, it like broke his legs, and he wasn't able to walk again because he was a baby.
Yeah, it was
So
like, didn't his like feet get crushed or something?
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So he wasn't able to walk anymore. And so now he's in Lodabar. And I've heard, I could probably look this up, but the last time I looked this up after somebody had said it was that Lodabar means like desolate place.
Oh,
And so
okay.
like he was pretty much out there in the middle of nowhere, like just ultimate separation from anything good, and he's crippled, and it wasn't his fault.
Oh
So
man.
for me, I really like connected with Mephibosheth because
Mhm.
his injuries and the stuff that he was dealing with that made him feel less than, that made him feel unworthy to be in the presence of anyone for that matter, wasn't even his fault. Someone else's mistake caused him these wounds. Um and so that really connected with me because of my childhood and whatnot, right? And
Mhm.
so yeah, David goes to get Mephibosheth out of Lodabar, and when he brings him into the palace, Mephibosheth thinks that David's gonna kill him. He knows he's like the last one. So he
Yeah.
thinks because of how his grandfather Saul and like their Saul's issue with David, Mephibosheth thinks that David's gonna kill him. But David's trying to bless Mephibosheth because he is in connection with Jonathan. So this is like this beautiful picture of grace,
Mm.
because David wants to extend blessing and provision and acceptance and, for lack of a better term, adoption, because Mephibosheth now becomes like part of the court, almost like he has um like he eats at the king's table. He
Yeah.
eats with, yeah. So like he doesn't eat with the servants. He eats with the king. He eats with David every day for the rest of his life, is what David said. Like, you're going to eat with me. And so for you to be able to eat at the king's table, um like you had to be royalty or royalty adjacent, right?
Yeah.
So we're seeing this picture of David going on behalf of Jonathan, whom he's in covenant with.
Yes.
Yes. To bless Mephibosheth, who didn't deserve it, didn't earn it, um
Mm.
was just in connection to Jonathan,
Yeah.
was just related to Jonathan.
Mhm.
And so David is in the role of God here, because God is blessing us, Mephibosheth, because of Jesus. Jonathan. And it's just this beautiful picture of grace. And so um all we know after that, or at least as far as we've read, is that Mephibosheth is now in, in the palace with David. And oh goodness, come on. Why is my phone doing this? Um and and also you don't find out, or like it doesn't explicitly say this until after David has blessed him and made him like one of the king's sons, and gave Ziba, which is the servant that David asked to go and get him, gave Ziba and all of Ziba's sons to Mephibosheth as servants. You don't find out, or at least it's not said until the very last verse of the chapter that's about Mephibosheth, that he was lame in both feet.
It's
really? Like, yeah. So when so the scriptures bring up Mephibosheth when his feet were broken. Yeah, so like back when Saul died or whatever, it mentions him, but then doesn't mention him again. So we don't know where he went or anything until this chapter. And the whole chapter is talking about the grace that's being extended to him. And it's not until the end that we actually identify, or at least are reminded of his flaw, which is that he's lame in both feet. And it's just like all of this has covered the fact that he was lame in both feet. It's like, yeah. And it says Mephibosheth lived in Jerusalem, for he ate always at the king's table. And that's the portion that we have now. Like, it's the last thing on God's mind. What is wrong with us?
Yeah.
Like,
yeah. I was thinking that too. When I was reading it, I was like, he was shown that kindness just based on who his dad was, based on who he knew. Like, that's it. It's not because of anything you did.
Nope.
Nobody asked what you've done. Nope. It's just I know your dad, and I have a deal with your dad, and so therefore you can have whatever you want.
Yep.
Like, and he didn't think he was worthy of it. I wrote down that Mephibosheth paid homage and said, "What is your servant that you take an interest in a dead dog like me?"
Yeah.
Like, he just, I mean, he probably, who knows, maybe he had given up on, life. Maybe he was just like, I'm a cripple. Back then, for sure. Even now, there's more awareness and, but back then, if you were crippled, I mean, you were almost useless. Like, if he wasn't Jonathan's son, just period, I mean, who knows where he would have ended up? Because nobody, he probably would have just died if he didn't have people assigned to take care of him and stuff like that. So I thought that was interesting, that he was like, he considered himself a dead dog.
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, I love it. That's why I love it, because I'm like, I is Mephibosheth.
Yes. Even though I feel like low key later, I was telling you this earlier, that Mephibosheth, I gotta reread it, but I was like, wait, did he betray David later on? Low key? When David's son betrays him. I have to reread it.
What, when Absalom?
Yes. Was something happen when Absalom was doing his thing, that Mephibosheth was like, something about, is this the guy who was going against my grandfather? Something.
Oh, the tea.
I'm gonna have to reread it. I have to reread it, but
I mean, hey, still me. I mean,
no, it's being honest. It's still
me. If we're being
honest, but it's like, when I was reading it, I was just like, wait a second, you supposed to be at the table with me,
right? We supposed to be eating together for the rest of your life, and
I don't know if I can find it quickly, but anyway, we'll talk about it later, because it'll go with my story later.
Yeah.
So now after that, we're gonna get to the famous story of David and Bathsheba.
Mm, mm, mm.
And if you're not familiar with the story, it's a story where, I mean, some people may not be familiar with it, but it's a very famous story about when David, who was supposed to be at war, but he stayed behind for some reason.
Right.
This guy is a very big military guy. All of a sudden, now
Dude
that
was in
you're
the wrong
king,
place.
you got your palace, you're not going out to war for some reason. It's interesting. So he's back at the palace. There's nobody really around. He just looks over off the top of the palace roof and he sees a woman bathing outside. And then he tells his servants, "Hey, go get that girl for me." And then he brings her back and they have sex. That's
Mm-hmm.
the gist of the story. So that's what we're about to discuss.
Yep.
So first of all, I wrote down that it was like the time for war. It was springtime, apparently. Apparently, you go to war in springtime because you can't go to war in wintertime. So, like, you could be at war with a country, and
Hmm.
when it gets cold, it's like, okay, we're gonna go back to our country. But when the spring come
We're
around,
gonna pause.
it's on again. So, um, yeah, so the fighting was resuming, and I wrote down said David stayed behind. Why? I still don't understand. Um, I wrote down if
Mm-mm-mm.
David had had his attention where God wanted it, he would not have been at the palace
Exactly.
getting tempted. Not that like we don't know, but I just feel like he was already in the mind space of like you're not focused right now,
Yeah,
you know?
yeah. Like he got real lax because it said
Mhm.
that when kings normally go out to war, like
Yeah.
everybody was doing this,
Yeah, like, this is the
and you
time
had a
that we fight.
role.
Yeah, and it's weird because we literally just finished reading a large portion of scripture where David is literally fighting a war every day.
And David sent somebody else in his place. That was I didn't notice that until like just now. He
Yeah.
sent Joab, was like, "You go, I'ma stay here."
A lot of times, just like I don't know if David's getting older now, but it seems as though he's always sending Joab to do something, and then Joab sometimes he does stuff behind David's back, but it's like,
Yeah,
David, you should just been out there yourself, because
exactly.
Joab is really not trustworthy. Actually, he's like loyal, but he's like not. He's not gonna do what you say. And I'll get to that when we get to. I'll touch on Absalom,
And
but
he saw Bathsheba after he took a nap.
who saw
He,
Bathsheba after he took a nap?
David.
He saw her
David took a
after.
nap. Yes, this was like afternoon. David took a nap, got
Oh,
out of bed, started walking around the roof of his palace, and saw her. Dude was big
oh,
chilling. He was like, "I ain't out there. I ain't got no
yeah.
responsibilities now,
And he don't
like
have no responsibility.
at all."
He's
He's like, "I
lounging.
don't feel like doing anything.
Oh
I'm
my
just gonna
gosh.
lay in my bed." Like he legit was chilling
Yeah.
hard.
Yeah. And he's already. I read this that it was like this is not where David's problem started. David's problem started when he started taking more than one wife many chapters ago.
Yeah.
Okay? Because a lot of people will look at the Bible, look at David, look at Solomon, and say, look, God supports polygamy. Look how many wives they had. There's no part in the Bible that says God condoned this. Most
Right.
every time actually that these people did these things, they were punished in a way. There was judgment that happened. It wasn't just like their lives were hunky dory. And
Right.
David and Solomon are no exception.
Right.
Solomon actually, I feel like he writes Ecclesiastes. It basically tells you, hey, all those women was actually a bad idea. People forget that part. He
Yeah.
actually wrote a whole book like, hey, actually just focus on God, and that's all you need to do.
Right.
Um, so yeah. So I was like, oh wait, what was I about to say? Oh yeah. He started taking more than one wife. That shows a lack of his romantic restraint, and he was already indulging in his passion. So Bathsheba was
Mhm.
just like the climax of. She was just the one that was going to put the whole
Yeah.
domino going into motion.
Right.
So I wonder, what do you think her reaction was when they came to get her?
Okay, okay. So hear me out. Hear me out. When I was reading this, I was envisioning
Because it's very vague.
Hamilton. Now,
Hamilton.
have you watched the musical?
I have. I have watched Hamilton.
Like, I feel like Bathsheba was like gave a Mariah Reynolds moment, you know?
Uh-huh.
Um, I don't feel like she was. Part of me doesn't think that she was bathing on the roof at that moment by accident,
No, you think?
but only
But she wasn't
because
on the roof. She was like in her house
she was in her
below.
house.
She wasn't at the palace. He was on the roof of the palace and she was bathing
Oh,
below.
yeah. It just says he looked out over the city
Yeah,
and
he was
saw that
just
she
being
was
a
bathing.
creeper.
But like he did, like she didn't contest it.
You think that she did not have to be coerced?
Yeah, like it just
It
says
doesn't
when
say
she came to the
anything.
palace. It doesn't say that
It
she
doesn't say
like.
a thing. It just says she went. And there are a lot of, I've seen, it's been a while, but I've seen some TikTok videos where there was a woman, she was talking about how Bathsheba could have felt coerced just based off of David's power and his position.
That's
Like,
fair.
are you gonna tell the king you're not coming?
That's fair.
There's women in 2021 who would be like, yeah, okay, like, and I also wrote down, uh, do you think they had to wait for her to get dressed, or was she already like dressed and back in the house when they came to get her?
Yeah. Yeah, I think yeah. That makes sense. But still, I saw her as Mariah Reynolds. But you right. This is the Bible and not Hamilton. But
I
okay.
mean, we just never know. She could have been happy to get the attention of the king. She also could have just been like, I don't really know what's going on. I don't know. If, we
Yeah.
don't know.
And it's like
We'll
it's
never
all
know.
speculation. Like we have no idea. The scriptures
Yeah, I
doesn't
wish we did
they
know, but
don't give an insight into her ideas of this. It just
yeah.
says that someone went to find her, and when she came to the palace, he slept with her. And but what we do find out is that she just finished her cycle, and so she had just finished her purification
Mhm.
after the cycle, which is a week after your cycle, right? Or
Mhm.
is it two
Mhm.
weeks?
Yeah, which is why she was ovulating, which is why she got
Exactly. It
pregnant.
was 2 weeks. Yeah. So which is why she was
Mhm.
ovulating, and then 2 weeks after that found out she was pregnant.
Yeah, yeah, I read that it was like it was a point to put that in there so there was no question that the baby was David's, not her husband's.
Yeah.
Because we don't know when the last time she had sex with her husband
Because her
was.
husband's been at war, right? Except for David was like, hey, yo, Joab,
Oh, look,
send
this is the
me.
thing. David, okay, so David gets her pregnant, right? And he's like, "Oh, okay, how am I gonna fix this?" This is where you always go wrong, trying to fix your own sin.
Yes. You
You're
only
gonna
end up
just make it
sinning more.
you're gonna make it worse. So he tells them to bring Uriah in from war, and he's like, "Uriah, you know, you've been working hard. Why don't you
Yeah.
go home and sleep with your wife?" And Uriah doesn't go home. He's like, he doesn't feel right about it. He's like, all my guys are at war. I could never just go home and just,
Sleep with my wife. No
showing
one
that
else
he's a
gets to sleep
more,
with their wife, and I'm just here.
yes, showing that he's more honorable than David is at this point.
Yeah.
So then I think later, I don't know how many days later it was now, but he invites him in again. But this time he gets him drunk because he's thinking for sure if I get him drunk, he's gonna go home and have sex with his wife, and then no one's gonna know what I did because who's gonna know?
Whose baby is it? Not mine. What you mean?
Yeah, doesn't work. You're right. Like goes to the bottom of the steps and falls asleep with
Yeah.
some other people, with like some other soldiers or whatever. So finally, David's like, well, since this guy just does not want to go have sex with his wife, I'm gonna have to kill him. That's the only
That's the
way.
only logical next step. Like it's like, I tried to get him to sleep with his wife twice. I mean,
He gotta go. I'm just
fool me
gonna have to kill him.
once, shame on me. Fool me twice, shame on you. Fool me a third
Yes.
time, not again. Like
Yeah. Yeah. And then he
it's the fact that he sent the note with Uriah. Uriah passed the note to Joab that said, put him on the front line so that he dies.
basically. And Joab, that's why I say Joab is real loyal, but he's also very corrupt because he does stuff like that. And then he also like doesn't follow directions to the T
But see,
either.
the thing is, and like, I'm pretty sure, okay, it doesn't say this, but because of Joab's response after Uriah had died, Joab tried to make it look like an accident by sending multiple people to the wall. Like, he didn't just send Uriah to the wall to
Yeah.
get slaughtered. He sent a
It was a
few
bunch.
people
Yeah.
with Uriah to the place so that he could cover it up.
Mm-hmm.
And then the person was like, bro, David's gonna be mad because David has killed both people that killed somebody unhonorably or whatever, right? Like David, he don't play with that. And Joab's
Mm-hmm.
like, just tell him that Uriah the Hittite is dead. He'll be fine. What?
That's all he want to know. That's all he cares about. Trust me. That's basically what he said. He
That
was
poor
like,
messenger came back and was like, David, we tried really hard and we fought like hard a lot, whatever, and like they was coming for us, so like we stood in front of the wall. Like I know we weren't supposed to stand in front of the wall, but like Uriah the Hittite is dead. David goes, word?
you have brought me good news.
Bet. Say less.
Yeah, yeah. Very, very evil in the sight of the Lord. And it says that in the Bible that it's, what does it say? It says something like God considered what David did evil. So
Yeah.
I don't even know why people think that David was going to get away with this.
Yeah. So okay, when I read that, I was like, so God wasn't covering up his sin?
No, no.
Because that's like, I never got to the point. Well, okay, I knew of the story, so I had heard the
Hmm.
story told, and I guess keep going into the child part because I don't want to jump ahead.
Oh, yes. Okay. So before I even say that part, I wrote down when she left after they had sex, it says like she went back home like after they were done. And I
Mm-hmm.
was like, that was an ancient walk of shame.
Bro, yes, that was a one night stand, and she took
Yeah.
the walk
Yeah.
of
I mean, she
shame.
may have had a great time, honestly. They don't talk about what kind of woman Bathsheba was, if she was you know, w- who knows? She could have had a good time. She could have been coerced. She could have been sad. We will never know,
We will
really.
never
But
know.
it is unfair to paint her as a harlot if we don't really know. Uh,
True.
yeah, because she could have just been a regular lady who
Look,
just,
David was probably singing to her and stuff,
he probably was doing a
like
lot. She probably was like, you know
he
what?
said, "Can
Uriah
we
been gone for a
talk
long time,
for a minute?
you know?
Girl, I want to know your name."
Mm, mm,
Yes, that's how David was rapping to her. David was trying to get her for real.
yes. So
Um
the next part of the story is basically God tells Nathan the prophet, "Your boy is wilding. I need you to go tell him this parable to teach him a lesson." So Nathan goes and he tells him the story about this rich man and this poor man, and this rich man who has like all this cattle, all this sheep, all this stuff, and there's a poor man who only has like one little lamb,
just
and the lamb like eats off the human's plates, and it's like their little pet, and
I'm
the
like, is that how you see someone's wife? But
and
go
the
on.
rich and the rich man, uh, has a guest come, and he's like, "Oh, I need to prepare food. I'm gonna go steal the poor man's one little lamb." And Nathan tells David the story, and David gets really mad. He gets super mad, and he's like, "This person." First of all, nobody asked you for a judgment. He
At
just told
all.
you a story. He's like, "This man must die," and Nathan's like, "The man is you. Actually, I know what you did." And
That's
David's
you, my
like,
boy.
"Oh no, I have sinned." Actually, before this, I think before Nathan, is it before Nathan comes and tells him this? He takes Bathsheba as his wife. He lets her go through the period of mourning for Uriah, and then he takes her as his wife because she's pregnant. You know,
Hmm.
he don't really know her to. I mean, he doesn't care. He has how many wives by now
Right.
and concubines. Um, but anyway, so once David figures out that he's been caught, he's like, "Oh my gosh, like I'm so sorry. I am a terrible person." So I'm trying to think if I even now. Actually, my
So,
notes stopped, but I'm off the cuff now because I
something
kind of know the story.
something that kind of hit me funny was in the Psalms that in the psalm that was in correlation with that. So like this
Mhm.
was after Nathan had told him the story and he was repenting. David said, I have sinned against God only. Like I have only sinned against God,
Mhm.
not the fact that he just killed a human being. Like don't you think you might have sinned against Bathsheba too? Like,
Yeah,
I
like,
don't
yeah, cause she
know.
probably miss Uriah. Like, did she hate him?
It don't say that. She mourned the dude. So like,
I mean, but isn't the period of mourning is, like, kinda imposed upon people? Like, you have to go through it.
really?
Like, even if you didn't really care about your husband,
Mm.
you had to go through the period of mourning. You had to wear the widow's clothes for however long.
We don't know
Cause
nothing
even
about
Abigail had to
Bathsheba
do that too, I
other
think.
than the fact that she was in a bath,
We don't
slept
know
with
anything
David.
about her.
We don't know anything about her psyche. We don't know nothing about her like mental whatever, like what happened to her emotionally. We know nothing.
Yeah.
All we know is that she got pregnant by the king, who's David, and her husband was killed on purpose because she got pregnant by David.
Do you think that she knew why he got killed, or he's at war and there's always a chance he could be killed? Do you think I don't know if she was in on the plot.
I don't think she was in on the plot, but I don't know how in the know you have to be to like come up with that.
Yeah. She might
It
have
seemed mad
figured it out.
convenient.
She probably figured it out later, like, "Hold on,
Yeah,
wait."
it's like now my husband's dead.
Yeah.
Okay.
Ooh. Oh my goodness. Anyway, so now I'm going off the cuff because I have no more notes, but
Yeah.
after this, Nathan's talking to David, and he basically tells him so Bathsheba gets pregnant, right? He tells him that the baby is, like, not gonna live. The baby's gonna die. And this part to me is so important because if you've ever heard the story of David, and Bathsheba, I don't even know how people talk about it at church, but I have never heard the part about the punishment of David. Like,
Right, me
people talk
either. That's what
about
I was gonna say.
yeah, people talk about David, being a man after God's own heart, and he definitely was. And this story to me, when the baby dies, actually shows just how much he is a man after God's own heart. Because so Nathan tells him the baby's gonna die. I think she has the baby or whatever. The baby gets struck. God strikes the baby with like an illness or whatever. David fasts and prays for like 7 days while the
Mhm.
baby's going through it, just in case he knows the sentence already, the judgment. But he's like, just in case God will change his mind. You never know. So as soon as the baby dies and he finds out the baby dies, he gets up, he washes his face, he goes to eat. He doesn't even eat, he's fasting, he's praying. He doesn't eat for a week. When the baby dies, he worships the Lord, he cleans his face, he goes to eat. And to me, when I first read that, I was shocked. I was like, "Wait,
And so was everybody in the palace like,
he's worshiping."
excuse me, mom.
Like, most people, they're looking at him like, "Wait, you have been doing all this carrying on when the baby was alive, now the baby's gone." And then David was just like, "Well, the baby's gone now. What you want me to do?" Like,
Yeah,
God said what he said. I still trust God. He deserves the praise, and I'm about to go eat now. Like, I don't know why
basically.
that's not preached in church.
Yeah. So
Like,
I've always like been under the assumption, I don't know if this was something that I had heard or just a conglomerate of like everyone's opinions on the matter, but I've always heard it as if God taking the baby as a means to cover up David's sin.
mm-hmm.
And I've never noticed that David did not want that. So like I
Yeah,
didn't know that David was like, no, don't take my child. Like, that's
yeah.
still my child. Whether it was a mistake or not, that's still my child.
And David loves his kids. Like, think about
Yeah.
his kids betray him and everything, and he still is like, "It's my baby." Like,
Yeah. He's trying not to be the dad that he had, you
mhm,
know? Well, that's just
mhm.
conjecture, but that would make
Yeah,
sense. But
his dad was okay. He
just by
just
like
forgot
how,
him.
yeah,
He just forgot
basically.
about him.
Basically.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's just like when people talk about how I think I heard this on on Jackie Hill Perry's one of her podcasts. I think it was her and her husband talking about it, about
Mhm.
her book Holier Than Thou. And they were saying like talking about this and how God dealt with David. Um and basically they were like how people ask like how does David get off, like how does David do all this stuff and still lives and like he just gets off scot free. And I
Mhm.
just want to dispel that myth, like God punished him.
Yeah.
And not only that, he not cursed his whole line, but there was a judgment on his line, on his family line after that they will live by the sword. That
Yeah.
um
Mhm.
something else about like
No,
just the way that
I was gonna say that too, because it's like that was just one of the first things that happens, because even after that is when um his daughter, he has a daughter named Tamar. I can't believe I almost forgot
yeah.
that.
And
His daughter
that's
Tam
gonna come out next week.
Yeah, is that next week?
Uh-huh, because that's
Oh.
this week's content. So
Oh,
the
okay, so
episode,
I save
because
it.
that came Monday.
Oh, okay. But think about that. We're gonna go into it next week, but there are all these things that happen after this thing that, like you said, is cursing his line. Something
Hmm.
happens to his daughter. One of his sons betrays him.
Yeah.
It's just a bunch. It's a bunch of stuff.
It
So,
says it says yeah, so God says, from this time on your family will live by the sword because you have despised me by taking Uriah's wife to be your own. This is what the
mhm,
Lord says: because of what you have done, I will cause your own household to rebel against you. I will give your wives to another man before your very eyes, and he will
mhm,
go to bed with them in public view. You did it
mhm.
secretly, but I will make this happen to you openly in the sight of all Israel.
You know what's so crazy about that? And it is for next week's reading, but I read it already.
Yeah.
Just so sneak peek. His son who betrays him goes back to the palace when David runs away, because I don't even know what David's doing. He's always running.
Yeah.
And
He's a lover, not a
his
fighter.
son goes to the palace because David leaves his concubines there to take care of the palace.
Hmm.
Like David's fleeing, but he's like, y'all stay here and take care of the palace, though, the concubines. And his son Absalom goes to the palace and takes all his concubines and sleeps with them in sight of all of Israel on like the palace roof. And God was talking about his son.
That's crazy.
That was a prophecy. That was crazy. Like, I just
Yeah.
realized that actually when you just said that. I was like, "Wait, that
I didn't
actually
know
happened."
that. I hadn't gotten there yet.
Yeah,
That's
it happened.
crazy, bro.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I just realized that.
What
Mhm.
God says he's gonna do is gonna do, bro. Like, and so David did not get off scot free. This was
At
not,
all.
oh, God, David was a man after God's own heart, so like he could do no wrong.
No.
No, God was like, come here, little dude. Come
Yeah.
here. You
Yeah,
done
like
messed up. I forgive you so you
mhm.
won't die because of this sin. But
Yeah.
just know there are repercussions because of the judgment you have brought on yourself by doing these things.
Mhm. I know.
So, yeah, the baby dying wasn't a way to cover up the
I would have
sin.
never even thought that, but like I said, I had never heard that part of the story until I read the Bible for myself. So I never once thought, "Oh, they trying to cover up David's sin." My first thought was like, "Oh man, like he." To me, that was heartbreaking. Like I couldn't imagine my child dying, the child being he let the child be born.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like he could have caused her to miscarry at any time when she was pregnant or just any it could have went any way, but the baby was actually born and then got sick.
Mhm.
That's tragic.
Yeah.
Like, and I think about Bathsheba too. We see it from David's point of view. He's
But now
crying, he's
Bathsheba
on the
has lost
floor.
her husband and her
Bathsheba,
son.
the post like the hormones. My goodness, like who had Bathsheba's back?
On me, cause like that
Cause she
she
was already
seems
in
like a prime
postpartum.
candidate for postpartum
Yeah, she was like depression.
depression.
Yeah, literally. She was literally clearly in postpartum. Then her child dies, and she was just got out of mourning for her husband, like you said. And I don't know I don't know what kind of therapy they had back then. I don't know, but when I think about it from a woman's perspective, Bathsheba was going through it, and
Like
she didn't ask for this.
imagine I mean, like, don't imagine this too hard because this is definitely a very hard thing to think about. But it's like, imagine, like, this is a baby. Like, this isn't like a 3-year old. Your body is still responding to that baby.
Mhm.
And now the baby is gone.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so, like, until your milk dries up, like, that's a constant reminder. Like, all that thing. And then, I feel for any woman who has lost a child. I really do because like I couldn't even imagine that, and let alone a baby. Like I couldn't even imagine that.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
she just lost her husband too. It's just like, dang, dude, like no one,
Yeah.
somebody give her a
She
hug.
didn't ask for this. She didn't ask to be called to the palace. She
She
was trying to
didn't.
take a bath. Her period had just ended. She's just trying to clean herself off. And David just thrust her into this life that not saying that she's super like she's free from fault because
Right, because
you
she
know
did know
we
she was
don't know.
married.
We don't
So
know if she said no, I don't want to. We don't know if she said cool. We just don't know.
yeah,
She could be at no fault. She could be at some fault.
yeah,
We don't know, but I don't think that she really asked for that. Like I think she was pretty content with her life with Uriah, and she was probably good.
yeah.
I think because Uriah was like one of like the he was one of the leaders. He wasn't like the commander, but he's like one of the like the higher
Hmm.
ups. He's ranked, and I want to say I read that I forgot who they said her dad was, but he was like a ranked person too. So it was like she wasn't just some random girl. She's like a girl of some prestige. So probably why she living close to the palace where he can kind of see her.
Probably,
Already a rich girl, rich daddy.
probably.
Um, yeah, yeah. But
Man,
is that all I had? I thought that was a very short episode.
it was.
You sure we ain't had nothing else?
No.
We did have a lot of psalms, and then now apparently I don't know where I'm at because I thought that I had, but that was like, but you're right. That was what I read today, and today is
Hmm.
Wednesday,
Yeah.
not Sunday or Monday.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, then that's it. That's all we had. We talked about Mephibosheth and how he relates to us in Jesus, and then we talked about the untold stories of David and Bathsheba. I would love to know people's opinions and leave it in the comments, or leave it somewhere wherever it is. DM us. I want to know what you think. Do you think that Bathsheba wanted to go? Did she not want to go? I want to know. I want to know what other people think, because I mean, we'll never know, but I want to know what you think.
Yep.
Yeah. But we will be back next week talking more about David and his crazy family. He had a crazy family too, a lot of dysfunctional families. But
Yeah.
see, that's what happens when you have multiple wives.
That part.
That is a
And
common
steal somebody
denominator.
else's wife and then kill him.
That's what
That's
happens.
what
You got
happens.
all these kids running around with different mamas, different, you know. But yeah, we'll get to some of his children next episode. So with that, we thank you for watching. We bid you adieu. Click all the buttons and hit all the links. Share our episode. Do all the stuff we need you to do. And we appreciate you guys. Thanks for listening.